Pacific Ridge School, an independent middle and high school in Carlsbad, combines the best of traditional education with new, innovative approaches to cultivate a community of modern learners. In small, seminar-style classrooms, Pacific Ridge students practice critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration across a spectrum of course offerings that feed their desire to learn. Meet faculty, talk with students, and explore the campus to learn more about Pacific Ridge's academic program and the Student 360 experience at an open house on November 4th at 1 p.m. For more information and to register, visit pacificridge.org/visit-us.
Welcome to the Voice of San Diego podcast, where we make sense of local politics, schools, housing, public safety, the civic issues that impact the life of a San Diego resident. We break it down so you can understand it and make educated decisions.
Everything that goes into our investigative reporting, the journalists, public records requests, the data crunching, and this very show depends on the support of people like you because we're a nonprofit news organization. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to those of you listening on News Radio 600 Kogo. My name is Scott Lewis. I'm here with my friend Andrew Keatts.
What's up, my man?
And amiga Sara Libby.
What's up?
How are you?
I'm great.
Yeah.
Good.
Good. Everybody's good. I've been thinking a lot lately about this article that I read that all the ladies were sharing a couple of weeks, about 10 days ago or so.
You have thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure you have thoughts. The article is from Harper's. It's called Women Aren't Nags. We're Just Fed Up. Emotional labor is the unpaid jobs that men still don't understand. Sort of just a quick summary. It talks about a woman whose husband does the dishes all the time but still doesn't understand the things that she does to keep everything together.
Yeah.
And it's called emotional labor. It's just remembering bills that need to get paid, picking up things that are laying around. This resonated with you?
It didn't just resonate with me, which it did very deeply. But I've never had, it's been a long time since I had so many people just proactively reach out to me and say, did you see this? It hit me so hard. And I think it hit a lot of women really hard. To me, the thing that really got me was all the planning. And you don't see a lot of that happening. To me, it happens on like my phone lists and whatnot. But like I arrange the dog walker and the dog's trips to the vets. And I plan what all of our meals are going to be throughout the week and where I'm going to buy the groceries to do those meals. And it's a lot of planning.
Yeah. No, it resonated because I'm the guy that does the dishes all the time. However, there's a lot of things I don't think about that just get done. And that's what we're talking about here, right?
Yeah. Like, how does all your toilet paper and paper towels appear in your house? Probably because somebody thought about when you might run out of them.
I notice you're being quiet.
There's, you know the movie Walk the Line? Reese Witherspoon and Joaquin Phoenix?
Yeah.
There's a part where he says, like, Johnny Cash says, like, don't worry about that. Like, that's all going to work itself out. And Reese Witherspoon's character says, no, people work that stuff out for you.
Yeah.
And that moment when I first saw that movie was when it resonated to me that had been happening to me for a long state.
That's exactly right.
Of my life.
So I've been working on this a lot, thinking about picking up things and all that. But I've also been thinking about my response, right? It's true. All true. The only
I'm
thing
worried right now.
The only thing I came up with was I killed a rat once. That's the only thing I got, that I killed a rat once.
And it was like a very smelly rat, if I remember.
It was a whole thing.
Yeah,
it was a whole thing. And that's all I got. So the point being, is like, I think that way back when we were all like out killing stuff and fighting off people that were attacking us, and that all got taken care of, mostly. That all got taken care of. There are no bears coming into our house or whatever.
I hope
so
not.
we just watch football, and we never. You guys have been keeping things going the whole time, keeping things together.
Yeah.
And we never adjusted. So we're adapting. We're trying to learn. Yeah. All I'm asking for is a little patience.
Yeah. My response to that is another piece that really hit me very deeply in that article is that I think men have this knee-jerk reaction to say like, well, I do the dishes and I do this and it's not that you do nothing.
Yes.
Like, don't get me wrong. My husband does a lot of things. He does. He does not do nothing. It's that anytime we try to broach anything, it turns into like a zero-sum game of like, well, I don't do nothing. This is crazy. This is...
No, I've been there. I think it took 10 years of those fights to get me a little bit better. Well, we're getting better. We're all learning. You're probably learning a ton with the kid.
Yeah.
There's a lot to do.
I'm just trying to keep my head above water right now.
Yeah.
Sometimes that's what we're all doing.
I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I thought it was a good piece. It's been all over. It's like every time I pull up a social media feed, somebody's sharing it. Women aren't nags. We're just fed up. Really provocative. We have a great show today. It's Beef Week. So we also have Kim Kilkenny. He's here to talk about the Friends of San Diego State's plan to, to do something with Qualcomm Stadium land. But primarily, it's Beef Week. All right, so we're gonna go through 4 or 5.
That is exactly what I imagined when I proposed that drop. It sounded exactly like that. In
You
my
nailed
head.
it.
Good job. Oh, good job, Adam Greenfield, our producer. So this week, we are going to talk about several beefs in public life. There's a lot going on. We realized as we started adding them up, there's several.
Yeah.
First off, there's a beef going on between the city of San Diego and the county of San Diego. The city is the city. The county covers the whole region. The county is most in charge of things like public health, food stamps, air pollution, stuff like that. The city, of course, manages the firefighters and the land use decision within the city of San Diego city limits. Now, this whole homelessness crisis and the hepatitis A outbreak has really strained their relations because the county was in charge of sort of alerting and treating the healthcare problem, and the city is in charge of the homeless and the cleaning the streets problem.
Sheltering.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there was a really interesting moment at the County Board of Supervisors meeting this week. Diane Jacob, who's the chairwoman of the County Board of Supervisors this year, was being presented to by Barbara Bree, the one of the city council members of the city of San Diego. So she was sitting down in the audience and was speaking up to the Board of Supervisors, and Barbara Bree was making this case about how we need support from the county for this problem. And Diane Jacob had this response about what the county was willing to do and what it was willing to spend money on.
County will also continue our programs. We have a multitude of programs, and we just approved almost $200 million allocation yesterday for mental health services. And as you and I both know, that a lot of the homeless have mental health problems. And the county will continue to do that, as well as drug and alcohol services that are within our purview, not just for the city of San Diego, but for the entire region. But we have no intention of providing resources for maintenance or operations of the facilities within a city.
So, okay. All right, Diane, you're not going to help with the city facility. So the first thing that comes to my mind, of course, and I think it should come to everybody's mind, was just last year, County Supervisor Ron Roberts and Mayor Kevin Faulkner going around saying the county was willing to put $150 million into a city facility for the Chargers.
That was a facility.
That was a total facility. And I remember calling Diane Jacob, the county supervisor, just the person we were just listening to, and asking her if she was opposed to that and trying to get her, and they would not put her on the phone for any, she would not say, I'm opposed to that.
Yeah, so there was this basic promise made that the county had this money available and they would make it available for a football stadium. You had repeatedly pointed out that that required an act of the County Board of Supervisors. They would have had to vote to approve that. And despite repeated efforts to get some assurance that the votes were there, that 3 of the 5 supervisors would in fact vote to give you that, no one ever confirmed it. No. It was just treated, when we need to talk about it as a promise, we'll talk about it as a promise.
Yeah.
But when you want to talk about the uncertainty around it, like, we'll deal with that later.
They wanted it both ways. They wanted to assure people they hadn't spent the money.
Yeah.
But they wanted to assure the NFL and the Chargers that they were willing to dump $150 million into this.
Right.
It seems like they also want to have it both ways when it comes to homelessness. In the time since then, when they were approving their budget and facing all this criticism about you're sitting on these piles of millions of dollars and you could be spending it on vulnerable populations like the homeless, they had to come out and say, okay, we're going to loosen the purse strings. We do care about the homeless. We are going to spend money on them. And now that it's like the city that's asking them to do it, they're like, nah, we don't want to do that.
Exactly. And so
one more thing. It's just like a couple weeks ago, they declared a state of emergency. And now it's like, oh, so what does that entail? Literally nothing. We'll change nothing. All of our spending will stay the same. We have programs that we've already budgeted for. You should be happy about those.
We'll continue spending money on mental health.
Yeah. But like, by the way, we've declared a state of emergency.
Yeah. So it was literally a gift from the heavens that right before the show, County Supervisor Ron Roberts, also picking up on this line of discussion, decides that he wants to release a statement about it.
But this is because the Nathan Fletcher, who's running for supervisors, and other allies of his held a press conference saying, well, you had the money available for the Chargers. Why don't you make it available for this?
So he releases, County Supervisor Ron Roberts releases a statement, said, because the Chargers declined to negotiate at Mission Valley and instead abandoned San Diego for Los Angeles, I was never able to bring to the Board of Supervisors for consideration and approval a deal that would include a bridge loan to jumpstart a new stadium. Okay, this is absurd. He spent a year and a half talking about how he had $150 million that he was going to contribute to this. There was a discussion at one point that it might be a loan, and then they waved that away and said, no, we're going to contribute to this stadium. And every time, like I said, every time I asked if this was a secure thing that we could count on, they almost contemptuously scolded me for like,
how dare you?
Yeah, thinking that they didn't have the votes to pull this out. And now his whole excuse is, I never had the votes. I was never going to do this.
We never voted on that.
And if it was going to do
it never came up.
Yeah, if it was going to happen, it would have been a loan too. Garbage. I'm sorry, this is total garbage. This is just not, it's not true. And he's being a complete fraud right now with this discussion. This is just, it's absurd. And it's part of a whole year of absurdities from this man that guided the whole SANDAG thing.
Yeah,
he was the chair
of
SANDAG when they were caught lying to the public about what their ballot measure for a tax increase was going to do. This is just, I'm sorry, this really got me. And but also, so either A, he was lying to the NFL, or B, he's lying now that this money isn't available. And it's just,
and at the very least, it's a transparently silly claim that like, you take care of city facilities and we are not in that business. It's like, you're happy to be in that business when you want to.
Yes, you can do it. You can do it.
You've got the money.
Yes,
it's not your responsibility, but is it or is it not a crisis?
Right.
I also just want to step back for a second. And there was like a good, 6 days when we were all like, the city is everybody's finally doing something about Hep A. Finally, they're washing the streets. They're putting up stations. And it's been like a few days. And now we're like, it's all about the Chargers and we're fighting. And
we're still fighting about the Chargers.
Yeah. How did the Chargers find their way back into this?
It happened. Thank you, Ron Roberts.
Well, they promised $150 million to the NFL. They're not willing to promise it to the homeless situation. That's it. That's the bottom line of this discussion. And it's morally incomprehensible how they landed there.
And if you weren't willing to promise $150 million to the NFL, maybe you shouldn't have had a press conference saying that you were promising $150 million to the NFL.
Oh, it gets me.
Multiple press conferences, I think.
Yeah, like another one after they announced that they were leaving. Like, God.
It's
Beef Week.
All right. What's the next one, Sara Libby?
Oh, it's going to be hard to top that one. But two very prominent public safety officials, Mara Elliott, the city attorney, and Police Chief Shelley Zimmerman are having a bit of a feud, I suppose, or a beef.
A beef.
Obviously.
Beef would be the right word.
Over how the department approaches rape kits and the processing of rape kits. So lots of departments across the country have backlogs of rape kits because it's expensive to test them all, and it takes a lot of resources and staff and things like that.
So after you've been a victim of a sexual assault, this is a rather invasive procedure.
Exam, yeah, absolutely.
Pulling evidence together for DNA and stuff.
Yeah, so to collect hair and DNA and fluids and things like that. So SDPD has a very strange approach in that they purposely don't test some of the kits. And it's not just that they don't have the money, it's just like strategic, that they want to do a lot of investigation up front. And if they determine a number of factors, then they'll test it and put it in this database. Most places don't do that. Most places want to test everything. And Mara Elliott wants to test everything. And she actually called out Shelley Zimmerman to some extent in a way and said, you might say we have a professional disagreement about this, which is like a perfect subtle cut.
That's City Attorney Beef Week lingo.
For sure.
Fire.
And and so Shelley Zimmerman responded and said, I've personally invited our city attorney to sit down with our crime lab manager and our sex crime unit to help her understand our methodology. To this date, she has refused to accept that offer. So
she just doesn't get it.
Oh.
Seems like she may be a criminal prosecutor, but she just doesn't understand.
It's not often that two sort of public law enforcement folks like that just have a sharp disagreement in public like that. But it's
Beef Week.
All right, we have a beef that might be dialing it back, but is fired up again. This is the water stuff. What's going on there?
All right, so the San Diego County Water Authority has spent many years suing the Metropolitan Water District to save a lot of money, and they have now lost overwhelmingly. This is conclusive. The Supreme Court decided not to take up this case, and now some local water agencies that are part of the San Diego Water Authority, they're kind of sick and tired of this endless litigation and bickering, and they want some sort of truce. The problem is that the Water Authority doesn't really have any negotiating power anymore because their lawsuit has been resolved. They on the losing end of it. And so they had them over the barrel. They had the Water Authority the Metropolitan Water District over the barrel back when a lower court sided with them. Since then, they have lost that leverage, and they don't really have that many chits to trade in to try to settle this and come to some sort of resolution unless they want to find new things to fight about and introduce new lawsuits.
Or more beefs.
So
Rye Rivard did a really good story this week. Basically, this big lawsuit, the $6 billion they're hoping to get in ratepayer support to help lower the cost of water to San Diego. They lost this, but they did win one part of it, which is that when they filed the suit, this big agency in LA said, we're not going to subsidize any of your projects because you sued us.
Yeah.
And they successfully argued that was illegal.
Right.
And so all these subsidies were going to start flowing to like big projects like at Padre Dam and stuff that they wanted to do here. But then the San Diego County Water Authority said, we don't want those subsidies. And that is what triggered these like Padre Dam and Helix and some of these other places to say like, whoa, that money we can
we could use that.
We could use that, and we're losing it because you have this beef.
Yeah, so beef, big beef, and then a little beef
Beef baguettes beef.
Yes, lots
A
of
double stack of beef.
lots of beeves. Did we decide if it was beeves or beefs?
I think it's beeves because that's hilarious.
Yeah, Tristan Loper, our old producer, he used to always say that the plural of beef was beeves.
All right. Next up in
Beef Week. Governor Jerry Brown signed AB 805 this week, and with that, the balance of power on SANDAG has shifted. The agency's board will now vote based on the weighted population of each city on the board instead of by a simple tally. That change effectively puts control of the agency's decision-making in the hands of bigger and more urban cities that are likelier to be liberal, and takes it away from smaller and rural cities that are likelier to be conservative. And so with the stroke of a pen, it is as if the governor took a board with the Republican majority and gave it a Democratic majority.
Mm-hmm. And so this board of directors at the SANDAG decides what is in the package of projects if they try to raise taxes that they're offering to the public. They also decide the whole plan of the projects they want to do throughout the county.
For like a 40-year period.
Yeah, and then the other thing this bill did is allowed these two transit agencies, North County Transit District and the Metropolitan Transit System, to themselves float tax increases if they want, correct?
Right, which would, it is an open discussion whether how much this is true, but the idea, at least, is that it would be easier or potentially easier for tax increases to be passed in those limited areas. So the Metropolitan Transit District doesn't cover some of these tax-averse areas in the North County area. And so maybe you couldn't pass a sales tax for transportation projects countywide, but you could within just the MTS jurisdiction. Now, as I said, open question whether that's true, but that's at least part of the idea.
Now, could MTS do it like just for a part of its jurisdiction, or it's the whole thing?
My understanding right now is that it's the whole thing. There was some discussion previously about just like drawing sub-jurisdictions, and that might be something we see come up at a later date as well.
Yeah, that was kind of the wild card thing that actually tipped some people who represent these smaller cities who presumably would be like losing power.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those, city council members in Carlsbad and places like that said, well, yeah, but we really need that North County Transit District money, so maybe I'm for it.
Yeah,
Here's
exactly.
a question for you.
Yeah.
Does the mayor go to SANDAG board meetings now?
It is an interesting discussion. So Mayor Kevin Faulkner has just never really gone to SANDAG. It is just his alternative is Councilwoman Lori Zaff. Lori Zaff is a fixture there. She's there all the time. He now has far and away the most powerful vote on that board. Maybe he doesn't actually show up, but he certainly has the ability to start wielding influence more regularly. And one insight into this, the city of San Diego voted to support AB 805. It did so on party lines. 5 Democrats voted for it, 4 Republicans voted against it. That means that Mayor Kevin Faulkner could have vetoed that resolution.
And it would have stuck.
And the Democrats would not have been able to overrule his veto. And you'll notice that he did not veto that legislation.
And it's not that he just forgot.
I don't think that he just forgot. It's a pretty big deal. It's been well watched throughout the county. He didn't just forget. So by implication, then he supported or supportive of this change, which means, the city of San Diego is the big dog, just like it is at the Metropolitan Transit System and just like it is at the County Water Authority. Now it truly has a big weighted vote on the San Diego Association of Governments in these big transportation discussions and decisions. That's right.
Okay, we've got, like I said, Kim Kilkenny. He's coming in to talk about San Diego State's plan for the Qualcomm Stadium site and an initiative that he and his bros are trying to get on the ballot. And we're going to have our hero and goat in the second part of the show. And it's Beef Week, and it's been a good one.
Yeah.
And
lots of beefs.
Thank you to all of our folks listening on News Radio 600 Kogo. And for those of you who are listening on the podcast, stay tuned for the interview.
Beef Week.
This episode is brought to you by Competitive Edge Research and Communication. Competitive Edge Research and Communication is San Diego's premier polling firm dedicated to quality research since 1987. John Nienstedt, president of Competitive Edge, proudly supports Voice of San Diego and other local civic organizations. All right, we're back. This is the part of the day where I ask you, if you listen to this, to please consider supporting Voice of San Diego at voicesandiego.org/donate. This service, this podcast, and morning report, and all of our investigative reporting is only a result of people like you who support it. And if you don't, you might think about that a little bit. All right, another thing we did this week I'm very proud of is our new schools guide. So we put together a map of every school in San Diego County. And it's really addictive to click around. Go to voiceofsandiego.org/school-guide. voiceofsandiego.org/school-guide. You can search School Guide, Voice of San Diego in Google, and it'll come up. It's go to the map, and you can search for a specific school. You can see how the school's performed. You can see how it's doing in math, whether it's improving, how it's doing in English and language arts, and whether it's improving or not. You can also see how many free and reduced price lunch kids are there, as a measure of sort of poverty. You can see how many English language learners are there. You can see how many special distinctions it has. So you can filter those out. And if you're just looking for a dual language charter school with an IB program, you can hit those 3 filters and see what schools remain and put them on your list. So the San Diego Unified School District is accepting applications until November 13th. If you want to apply to a school outside your neighborhood, not a charter school. Charter schools are separate. You can apply for those during their own application windows. This is for magnet schools. And so if you're in one part of town, you want to send your kids to another part, that's what goes. You can pick 3 schools, and they'll go down your list according to availability and various criteria that they consider. So go to that, voicesandiego.org/school-guide. And I think it'll be fun. You'll enjoy it. I clicked around just for an hour the other night. It was
Me
fun.
too. It's cool.
You'll have a ball.
Yes, especially if you're into wonky maps in schools. All right, our hero of the week. All right, this week's hero is the French artist J.R. Anybody know what J.R. is in French? J?
Couldn't tell you.
That
was a great sound, though.
Yeah. Anyway, J.R.
I don't think it's that.
Okay. Thanks. He's the guy that did that toddler boy looking over the border fence in Tecate. And then they did just last weekend a picnic where the picnic table was 2 eyes you could see from above, and people on both sides of the border around the picnic table having a meal.
Passing tacos back and forth.
Yeah, tacos through the border.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet.
It's just cool to see somebody who's responsible for all these stories about the border that aren't terrible.
Yeah. It's really visually striking. And, you know, I think one of the parts, we'll talk about that in a second, but there's just, it just makes you think about the border and both sides being alive. It's not that one, it's not that life ends at one side. So.
Mm-hmm.
Our goat of the week.
You lose! Good day, sir!
So the Customs and Border Patrol put out pictures of the latest prototypes of the border wall, less appealing structure.
Yeah, there's several of them. They're like pieces of wall being constructed in Otay Mesa, and boy, are they not appealing.
Well,
I would describe them as walls.
Yeah.
They look like
They look like
30-foot walls.
They look like
huge
they're-
walls.
like made of concrete typically.
Yeah.
One of them isn't, but the rest are, thick walls.
The one I liked how you put it. You're like, well, why did we need a prototype? Because they're just a wall. Like,
Like how are they going to now that I see these 8 different stretches
Concrete
of wall,
walls.
now I'll decide between the 8 concrete
well, there
walls.
was one difference was that there was some fearsome razor thorns on top of one of them,
right.
and barbed wire on top of another.
Yeah.
But there was one distinct one that seemed to be conforming to the president and the Border Patrol's desire that you be able to see through the wall so
Right.
that you can see if people are catapulting stacks or bags of pot over your head.
Right.
And it's like a comb. It looks like a comb
Yeah.
stuck into the ground, just like that Spaceballs.
I was going to say
scene.
like Spaceballs.
Yeah, except 30 feet. It's really bad. It doesn't look like when they were saying like, oh, it'd be see-through, I was like, oh, maybe it'll be like a plexiglass or, I don't know. Like, no.
Well,
it's just-
that would have been a logical thought because they kept calling them prototypes
yeah, like something
as
new
opposed to just like
walls.
idiots building
Here's
walls in the
6
desert.
walls.
Anyway, let's just be clear what the goat here. I think seeing into Mexico is one of the most special things about San Diego. And this is all a symbolic exercise. And this is a gross symbol, especially when California's burning, Puerto Rico's drowning. All kinds of horrible things are going on. And we're spending money on these prototypes that all they do is send the negative symbol, especially in a place like San Diego where it's just like, it's, this inner cross-border commerce and culture is so important, and it's just a nasty symbol.
Mhm.
So it gets the goat this week. All right, we have Kim Kilkenny in the studio. Okay, we are joined in the Great Voice San Diego podcast studio in downtown San Diego by Kim Kilkenny. He's a member of the steering committee of Friends of San Diego State University, and he's the former chairman of the Center City Development Corporation, and we were just rapping about its change to the Civic San Diego, as it's called now. Redevelopment used to be redevelopment czar. I think there's about 5 people who know what it does right now.
Now it does like lowercase redevelopment.
Okay.
You know, like
the
it's
best
still
it can.
redevelopment, but the state doesn't have a redevelopment program anymore.
Right.
So,
Welcome, Ken.
Good morning.
Or Kim, sorry.
That's okay.
So let's just start. You're part of the group circulating this petition and hopefully get a measure on the ballot for 2018. And just tell us what's in it. What's the idea? What are the plans?
The initiative is fairly simple. It's only 14 pages long. And what it would do, if passed by the voters, would authorize the city council, authorize and direct the city council to sell the existing stadium site, 166 acres of it, to San Diego State University. It's our belief that the future of the university is critical to this region, and this initiative, if passed, would provide a foundation by which the university could grow on that site.
So this is, at its most basic, just an authorization to sell the land to San Diego State. There's not, like the Soccer City plan, there's not a lot of ideas of what will go there or plans or promises, anything like that.
No, what it does, as I said, authorize and direct the sale of the property to San Diego State University at fair market value, full fair market value. And then it has a series of other conditions that go along with it, the uses that would be permitted on it or anticipated on it, and various regulations that it would have to comply with, like it has to pay the city fees, comply with the city housing affordability requirements, and similar things. And then it establishes a process, a public, open, transparent process by which the property would be planned. It would require San Diego State to develop in an open and transparent manner a master plan for the property and go through the full environmental review process. We happen to believe that that is absolutely critical given the size and location of that site. It is literally in the heart of San Diego, at the corner of 2 major freeway systems, with a trolley system going through it, adjacent to one of San Diego's most beautiful natural resources, the San Diego River. And it is abundantly clear to us, and I think anybody, that a site of that importance should go through full environmental review and be subject to appropriate mitigation. This initiative would require that.
So just one point on that. Is that the normal California Environmental Quality Act stuff, or are we talking about the state process for higher education, or for these sort of state schools like San Diego State?
It is what we anticipate is that San Diego State would create a campus master plan for that site, supplemented with additional requirements that are outlined in the initiative to make it a more complete plan, similar to a specific plan that a land use jurisdiction would do. And then they would go through the state of California environmental review process. So it would be the state of California process for California state universities.
So not the normal CEQA process.
Well, I don't know that I understand the difference. CEQA is CEQA in that you have to identify impacts and you have to mitigate those impacts, and you have to do alternative analyses. So, to my knowledge, the state university system is substantially similar to the system that any jurisdiction would use.
It was always presented to us that San Diego State had a little easier path with some of that stuff because of the state process, not the CEQA as it would be for a private developer. So
Yeah, I don't know that is true.
Okay.
It may well be true. I don't know that it's true. I mean, the California Environmental Quality Act is the California Environmental Quality Act, and you have to meet certain standards and thresholds and go through certain processes and involve the public, and this plan would have to do that.
Okay, and so the other part of this is that this is going to be put before voters in the same year, probably on the same ballot as Soccer City. This is a private development proposal for the same plot of land, basically, that is also a mixed-use development proposal that includes a stadium. Can you tell us, what is it about this proposal that is better suited for San Diego State than Soccer City? What is it that this accomplishes or hopes to accomplish that was not accomplished by that measure?
Well, San Diego State University, as I understand from what I read in the newspaper, and this is just public information, is that they desire to get out of the stadium site a couple different uses. One is the opportunity to build a stadium for college football, and they were willing to partner with MLS proponents in order to do that. And the second is to get enough land out of the current stadium site to build some academic uses and research and development uses. According to newspaper reports, when negotiations failed between Soccer City and San Diego State University on the latter point, primarily. So what this provides is the opportunity for San Diego State to expand its campus west, 3 trolley stops from its existing campus west, build new campus, student housing, faculty housing, affordable housing, and market rate housing, and also to partner with private interests to develop research, innovation, technology centers to complement the university uses. I think it's worth thinking about University of California, San Diego as a model. The property that campus now sits on used to be owned by the city of San Diego. City of San Diego in 1960 made the decision that it was in the best interest of the public to gift that property to the state of California for the purpose of building a university. And as a consequence, we have generated significant economic benefit in San Diego region. San Diego has become, a world leader in wireless technology. San Diego has become a world leader in biomedical devices. And a whole range of fields and a whole range of businesses have been grown out of that campus. There's no reason why we cannot repeat that on the existing stadium site with San Diego State University. That's our vision.
So the reason I asked the question, though, is because when you read the initiative, that it lays out what would be suitable uses.
Yes.
And the size of them and where they would go and the relative mix of them is going to be left to this master plan process.
Yes.
But it does lay out what some of those things are.
Yes.
And if you just go by the uses themselves in a strictly narrative description, academic and administration buildings, high-tech focused office and commercial space that could be part of some public-private partnerships between the university and development groups, stadium-centric retail space, housing that could be for both faculty and staff as well as for undergraduate and graduate students, other housing that could be for anybody but who wanted to live in a campus environment. Those are all the same uses, basically, that are anticipated being part of Soccer City. So given that this leaves open the possibility of how much of each type of those use and where those uses will go, I want, to a layman who just says, okay, so there's 2 proposals on the ballot. They each provide a mix of these same types of uses, basically, on this same property, basically. What is it about this mix that makes it so much more suitable to that vision that you described for San Diego State to become something like UCSD that wouldn't have been possible with, on paper, the same types of uses in the Soccer City proposal?
Well, as I said before, the conversations between the university and the Soccer City proponents failed to reach the conclusion that the uses that the university wanted could be built there. So I think...
I'm asking for detail, though. I know that those negotiations failed. We talked to people about it at the time. I'm trying to understand, after they failed, as they're described now, they seem very similar. So I'm trying to understand what is it about them that's different.
The focus is completely different. We're talking about a public asset, the existing stadium site, selling it at fair market value to a public institution, and the focus of the development of that would be for a university campus. The focus of Soccer City is not for a university campus. It is for private profits for a private developer. This is a completely different motivation. The private development that would occur under our initiative would be used to support the university. It would be the revenue from which the university could be developed. So completely different focus, and we anticipate a synergy between the university uses, the research uses associated with the university, and the research and innovation uses associated with the private sector development to create a campus-like atmosphere that has tremendous economic benefits for the entire San Diego region, just like UC San Diego.
So it's the ownership. It's
clearly.
One will be public and one will be private.
We're talking about using a public asset for a public purpose.
Yeah. Okay.
You mentioned fair market value a couple of times. One way that somebody could analyze this as a city of San Diego voter is through economics. The appraisal, and I just pulled it up again for the Soccer City plan, was, now to be clear, you guys aren't talking about the Murphy Canyon property, right? That's completely separate. That will remain as the city asset, and they'll have to decide what to do with it. This the Soccer City appraisal, they in their initiative said whatever the appraisal the city comes up with, we'll conform to. That appraisal came out $82 million for the stadium property, not the Murphy Canyon property. Are you saying you don't accept that appraisal as the fair market value?
No, I'm not. What the initiative says, San Diego State shall buy the property at fair market value. Fair market value determined that which is fair and equitable in the judgment of the full city council. So it's what the city council deems as to be fair and equitable for that property. It may be $82 million. I don't know if that's a good appraisal or not.
Yeah.
I've heard the private sector people give a whole range of values for that property. I don't know what it is, but if the initiative passes, then the city council, in its wisdom, would determine what that value is.
So the city council could determine, we'll just use this appraisal that we already have?
It would be the city council's judgment.
Does the initiative say anything about it not counting, getting the land ready? What's it called? Where you get it entitled and ready and all that stuff.
So I actually quoted from this. I would be interested. I could see it being interpreted different ways, but it said that the fair market value of the appraisal may fairly consider various factors, adjustments, deductions, and equities, including but not limited to the costs for demolition, dismantling, and removal of the stadium, costs associated with addressing flooding concerns, and the costs of existing contamination, and the costs for revitalizing and restoring the river park. So does that mean that the city, again, left to its own devices, its own discretionary role, could choose to incorporate those costs and deduct them from whatever the appraised value is?
What the initiative says is San Diego State shall pay fair market value as determined by the city council, that which is fair and equitable. So it's whatever the city council determines it to be. It lists a series of factors that may be considered that any appraisal, in my judgment, would consider in there. Mm-hmm. Those factors are virtually identical, but not as extensive as the factors listed in the Soccer City initiative.
Right.
Their factors are much more extensive.
And that was when that appraisal came out. That was kind of the discussion point, was whether some of that was a starting point and it was going to be chipped away at by some of these other considerations.
Yeah. So is there any sort of minimum that San Diego State or the Friends are willing to say about what would be paid for this? So there's a chance it could be $0 or $5.
It is what the city council determines is fair and equitable, fair market value in their judgment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And San Diego State has said for some time that they'd be willing to pay fair market value for that property. I mean, that is not news.
So there's a line that says that San Diego State would be allowed to strike deals with private developers to carry out the master plan. There's no commitment or discussion about who those people would be?
No. The initiative would give them, if passed, would give them the opportunity to acquire the property, and when they acquired the property, they could partner with private investors on development of offices, development of retail, and the revenues from those would flow to San Diego State to build a campus.
We've talked a lot about the park that was in the Soccer City plan, the Mission Trails River Park. I'm sorry, the San Diego River Park. And there's Soccer City's various levels of commitment on that. At the first highest level is a $40 million commitment that could easily drop to $20 million if the city doesn't hit certain permitting deadlines to get that park approved. And you guys discussed the park somewhat. Can you tell us what the commitment and variables are with that?
Yeah, what the initiative does is require that if the property is sold, that a condition of the sale be that San Diego State shall cause the development of a 34-acre river park on the southern edge of the property. So that's it. And the initiative also provides that the city is not going to be paying for that park through the general fund. So the burden is on San Diego State to figure out a way to pay for that 34-acre park, and the initiative further puts in there a condition that the park has to be completed within 70 years after the execution of the sales agreement. So
What happens if not?
Then there'd be a breach of the contract.
And the city could get the land back?
It's between what the city and San Diego State negotiate.
Oh.
You know, let's be clear here. What we have done is we've created an opportunity for San Diego State to acquire this property and the city to sell the property at fair market value, and the property be used primarily for a public use. We did not in this initiative lay out an entire sales agreement.
Mm-hmm.
We did not lay out a 3,000-page initiative that had every detail in it. What we laid out is the opportunity for two public agencies to get together and strike a deal that is in the best interests of both, and then primarily in the best interest of San Diegans, because we would create a university campus that would have tremendous economic benefits for the whole of the region. San Diego State is now a constrained campus, 200 plus acres, 36,000 students. They have 80,000 applications a year, over 80,000 applications a year for students. They enroll around 5,000. A lot of local San Diego kids don't get to go to school there in spite of the fact that it's their closest opportunity, just because the demand far exceeds the capacity. This would afford San Diego State University the opportunity to grow economically and grow in terms of the number of the students and house more San Diegans or educate more San Diegans in San Diego. It would be folly, in my judgment, not to use this public asset for that public purpose at this time, and then for all of us to reap the economic benefits of the synergies associated with university development.
To the extent that San Diego State was criticized at all back in the spring when the Soccer City initiative was a hot button topic, it was that they had not come forward with a clear vision of what they needed and what they wanted, and they were able to say things that did not work for them or issues that they, identify issues with Soccer City, and they could lay out certain things that they needed to hit, but they didn't have a master framework for what they really wanted and needed. Is it a fair criticism to say that in spite of this initiative that still hasn't been provided, except that there should be a transfer of the property and then you should begin that process of building this master vision?
Well, according to the newspaper articles I have read, San Diego State is now in the process of coming up with a site plan for that piece of property.
Mm-hmm.
They drafted a vision that I was aware of that was shared with members of the city council, and now they're trying to put pen to paper to come up with a site plan to show exactly what they would like to have on that piece of property. And again, according to newspaper articles, that's supposed to be released in December. And then a week or so ago, San Diego State announced that they had hired some internationally renowned architect to design a stadium that would accommodate college football, accommodate soccer, and could be adaptable for professional football. So we know that is going through the process. I think San Diego State is in part unfairly criticized. I mean, from my perspective, I wish they would have been on top of the game a little bit more. But go back and look at the timing. The voters, rejected the Chargers in November.
Mm-hmm.
Soccer City announced the Chargers announced they're leaving in January. Weeks later, Soccer City announced this initiative, a 3,000-page initiative, completely baked. When in those matter of weeks did San Diego State have an opportunity to come up with some alternative plan? I don't know. I mean, the timing, again, newspaper accounts say that Soccer City had been working, for a year on this plan,
mm-hmm.
In secret, unknown to anybody else.
Well, they were with San Diego State.
They were having as I understand it, they're having conversations on a stadium and a stadium only. The whole of the plan was not part of the conversation. Apparently came as a surprise to San Diego State. But I wasn't part of those conversations.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But what I'm saying is there was a very brief time period for anybody an alternative developer, the city of San Diego to go to an RFP process. I mean, there was virtually no time in that period before the Soccer City initiative came out. So we're trying to remedy that now. We're trying to Soccer City said, give us an alternative plan. Well, this is an alternative pathway. San Diego State is coming up with a site plan in a matter of months. And our initiative commits this land to a public, transparent planning process. And I think that is critical. It is a public asset, and the public should have an opportunity to participate in the plan that goes on there, and this initiative would accomplish that.
So we've talked a lot about what's in the actual initiative, but first it has to get on the ballot.
Yes.
So what do you anticipate as being kind of the real selling point to voters? Like, what is somebody at Trader Joe's going to yell at me? Is it going to be about expanding SDSU and its campus and its ability to become this research center? Is it going to be keep SDSU football at Qualcomm? Or what is the pitch going to be?
Our emphasis is that this initiative, if passed, would provide the foundation for the expansion of San Diego State University and the creation of a research and technology park associated with it. That's the opportunity that we see is provided here.
It's an awkward thing for someone to yell at me at Trader Joe's.
Well, they will.
But it might get me.
Yeah.
You keep saying, according to newspaper articles I read, and I think what you're establishing there is that you are not in contact with San Diego State. Is that what you're trying to emphasize?
Our San Diego State is well aware that they have restrictions on what they can do in a political process. And while we've had conversations with them on occasion, we are constantly reminded of those restrictions. So I know they're going through a site planning process now. I don't know the particulars of it.
You can't say, though, that you even have the support of San Diego State.
No.
Okay. That'd be awkward to yell at people, too.
It would.
Yeah.
Well, what else should people know? Why support? What can they do to help? That sort of thing.
Well, what they can do to help, thank you for that. What they can do to help is we have filed a petition with the city of San Diego. It has been published. It is going through a waiting period that is mandated by law. And then come October 20th, we can go out and go get signatures. And we have to get 80,000 plus signatures. So we're going to try to do that by the December timeframe. So we're going to be out and about. And if you see someone at Trader Joe's or some other location, feel free to sign a petition if you want the opportunity to sell this property to San Diego State University and take advantage of the public asset for a public purpose.
So one quick question on the sale. So it reminds me, it's a teachable moment. So the city charter allows the city to sell land up to 79.9 acres by itself.
Yes.
At 80 acres, it has to get a vote of the public.
Yes.
So that's why Soccer City, when they was flirting with the idea of not getting a vote, that's why they kept it at 79, that they would get sold.
Yeah.
You are going for the whole plot, and the San Diego State would be able to buy the whole plot, but they would not be required to buy the whole plot?
No. What the initiative does is directs and authorizes the city to sell San Diego State 166 acres. So we anticipate the sale of plus or minus 166 acres. As you mentioned earlier, does not include the Charger training facility in Murphy Canyon, which has its own separate value. In fact, if this initiative passed, the city of San Diego could sell that to any party that they want to do and generate the proceeds from that, which to us seems to be an advantage. It also doesn't include, there's this property north of Friars Road that Soccer City included. That's a cliff right there. That would not be part of the acquisition. And there's property south of the river that's environmentally sensitive. That would not be part of the acquisition. It's just what everybody thinks of intuitively when you think of the existing stadium site. It's 166 acres right there. The charter provision regarding 80 acres applies only to sales to private parties. It does not apply to a sale to a governmental agency.
Oh, one quick thing. So who is on the steering committee?
A whole host of people. Myself, and not surprisingly, Walt Eckert, former CEO, CAO of the County of San Diego,
Mm-hmm. Well,
and
Walt.
yes, and COO of the City of San Diego. Malin Burnham, three of the former presidents of San Diego State University, Thomas Day, Elliott Hirschman, Steve Weber, and then a bunch of other supporters of San Diego State University, alumni and retired people like me.
Are any of them vowing or committing to not get involved in the development process? There was a lot of talk about that when we did some stories about the developers opposing Soccer City, that they all swore they wouldn't get involved in an alternative plan. Is that been part of the discussion at all?
I don't know. To be on a steering committee, we haven't asked for that vow,
Okay.
but the ones that I know are developers have told me they have no intention of developing the site.
And so the initiative, the city council has made previous decisions that might give us some indication where they would land. But this initiative, once you've collected the signatures and it goes to the city council for to be certified, they could opt to put this on the June ballot as opposed to the November ballot.
I'm not an expert in this area, but the city attorney issued an opinion that gave me the impression the city council has a lot of authority as to what ballot they put them on. So yes.
So that's the next thing to look for after the signatures presumably come in, are all checked out. Then we go to the city council decision making process.
And our hope and expectation, and it would be shocking if it didn't occur, is that we be on the same ballot that Soccer City is on, and right now that's aimed for November 2018. The initiative is drafted in such a way as that it is a direct competitor to Soccer City, and that would give the public a choice, and we think that's desirable.
And in the event that both pass, the one with the most votes prevails.
Exactly.
And is there any competing parts of it that one part could still stick with the Soccer City plan, or is it all abolished?
The way I read, both initiatives have similar provisions that say if there's a competitive initiative, only the one with the most votes wins. And the way I read those is it's winner take all. Pieces and parts of the other one don't survive.
Yeah. And so I don't know if the steering committee has gone down this road yet, but the initiative does specifically say that the stadium would be built to potentially accommodate an MLS team.
Yes.
The FS investors, the folks behind Soccer City, are currently the people who have been dedicated the exclusive right to have a San Diego expansion team through MLS. So is it possible, and have you had any discussions, that if you were to prevail and not their initiative, that they could still become partners on an MLS team since they would be the potential franchise owners?
I think our perspective is that the stadium should be designed to accommodate professional soccer. Mm-hmm. And I think we agree that a multitude of sports activities in San Diego is good, including a professional soccer. I think it would be highly desirable if it located here and played in this facility. The negotiations would be between San Diego State and whoever owns the professional soccer franchise.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Kim Kilkenny, he's a former redevelopment czar in San Diego, important person, and also now part of the steering committee of the Friends of San Diego State, working to get this on the ballot. Thank you so much for coming in.
My pleasure. Thank you.
The show you just heard was part of the Voice of San Diego podcast network. To hear other great shows like the Voice of San Diego podcast, I Made It in San Diego, a show all about San Diego's businesses and the people behind them, The Kept Faith, a San Diego sports show, the binational Curacaos podcast, Startup Vault, San Diego Beer Talk Radio, and more, please visit voiceofsandiego.org/podcasts. If you'd like to sponsor any of the podcasts, please email Aaron at aaron@voiceofsandiego.org. That's aaron@vosd.org. Is that okay?